The favored wisdom is that when Donald Trump goes, MAGA is going to go along with him. But Rick Wilson argues that won't be the case. Quote, it is a comforting bedtime story for people who do not understand Donald Trump, the movement he built, or the way power works when an authoritarian personality starts hearing the clock tick. MAGA, he writes, does not end when Donald Trump does. It mutates. Joining us, co-founder of the Lincoln Project and host of the Lincoln Project podcast, the man who wrote those words, Rick Wilson. Semaphore Congressional Bureau Chief Burgess Everett and host of the Tara Palmeri Show and author of The Red Letter on Substack, Tara Palmeri. Rick, lay out your argument for us.
Look, I think everyone has always underestimated Donald Trump's degree of transgression. You know, this is a guy who ignores the law, who ignores precedent, who ignores tradition, who ignores all the things that make the American presidency what it ought to be in the Constitution. And so I don't think that we can estimate a sort of like peaceful decline. Most presidents in the second half of their second term, they're thinking about their legacy. They're starting to wind down. They're thinking about the presidential library and the speeches. Donald Trump is thinking about how he can keep burning things down, how he can keep profiting from the presidency, how he can keep the spotlight on him until the last possible minute.
To what end, though?
It's Donald Trump. It's the scorpion on the back of the frog. It is the behavior that's wired into his character and his personality. He may be losing power, but it doesn't mean he can't be dangerous with the power he continues to have.
Doesn't the scorpion in the back of the frog ultimately kill the frog when it gets to its destination?
Yes, but I do think there are a lot of motivations, as I pointed out in the piece, from folks in the money world, in the Silicon Valley world, in the private equity world. They want to see the continuation of the sort of Project 2025 inflected policies that serve the top end of the MAGA food chain, not as much as the base, but it is going to evolve and change. I don't think that a machine that politically has been as useful to people like that as the MAGA movement has. It's done a lot more for them than it's ever done for the folks with the red hats and the boat flags. I think those people will never want to let go of a authoritarian model that uses executive power like a weapon against any opponent. So I think we're going to see a continuation of the support for Trump's technique and style among those people until the very last minute.
But does Donald Trump remain? I mean, from at first glance, you might be arguing that Donald Trump tries to stay in power. Do you accept that, or is it as MAGA mutates, does it find a new host?
Look, we thought as a country that Donald Trump would accept the results of 2020, and in a few weeks later, we had people storming the U.S. Capitol on his behest. And I think that Donald Trump is a gambler. I think he's erratic. I think there will be a part of him that wants to say sometime in 2027, nope, I'm going to run again. Whether it's legal or not doesn't matter. You already see a lot of folks like Steve Bannon pre-gaming this and playing this out. And people are going to say, oh, well, the courts will stop it. And the question is, will they? And he knows that he's got an ability to cause chaos that's unparalleled in American political history. And I think that is something that he will use to try to stay in the spotlight. Whether he can stay in power or not, that's a big fight ahead of us. But I don't think you should write off the fact that Donald Trump may try. In fall of 2020, right after the election, I said, the guy's going to run again in 2024. And people went mad. They were so angry with me, like, how dare you say that? I'm like, do you not study this guy? Do you not understand what he is now after a decade of observation? So that's where I'm coming from. Well,
the Republicans could have done away with it if they convicted him, but in the Senate, but they decided not to. They left that door open. I guess on the subject of mutation, Tara, at some point Donald Trump is not going to be around. At some point, whether it's him not running for office again, or not running and losing, or whatever, there will be a movement post Donald Trump. Does it still look like MAGA, or does it mutate into something else? And I ask the question because there's a lot of chatter online that MAGA is over, much the way that the Tea Party is over. Tea Party mutated into MAGA. MAGA is now going to mutate into something closer to, I guess, the Marjorie Taylor Greene version of America First.
Yeah, it could go either way. It could definitely go into the Marjorie Taylor Greene version of America First, in which the Ted Cruz's of the world can no longer sort of, bend to that. There's also the whole issue with Nick Fuentes and the Proud Boys, which I would maybe put in the Marjorie Taylor Greene part of America First, and the fact that they are in a serious crisis mode right now because they have white nationalism basically infecting their party, anti-Semitism, racism, extreme sexism. I mean, I don't know how you can sell that for so long to a party that relies on a coalition of immigrants that include Hispanics, that they had record growth. Also, I think people take for granted the fact that President Trump had such high name ID, that he was a celebrity and that he could bring people out, untraditional voters out. And I just don't know who that next person is on the right that could lead in the way that he did, a movement that is America First and has all those kind of coalitions together, from the white nationalists to the, broader coalition of minorities that came out and voted for him too.
And whether there is a, fundamental break of trust between those groups that the minority groups that voted for Donald Trump and what has come to pass during this first year of the administration, and whether they would support a Republican or a right-wing party again. I think that's an open question. I wonder, Burgess, what you're seeing congressionally. Obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene was a big part of this fissure and this mutation for what's going to come next. A lot of people had credited her with seeing where the party was going in the way that she was breaking with Donald Trump, but then she abruptly resigns. So what's left of that forward-looking attitude or movement in Congress right now?
I mean, it's still there in the Republican Party, and I was listening to you talk about the Tea Party there for a second, and what's interesting is a lot of those Tea Party folks are still alive. They're still kicking in the Senate. They're still in the House. So when Donald Trump proposes, say, $2,000 tariff dividend checks, you have a bunch of fiscal conservatives that are still in Congress, that are still in this governing coalition, that say, hell no, we don't want to do that, even if more populist members like, say, Josh Hawley want to do that. So the Republican Party is kind of this tapestry of the last 20 to 30 years, which includes these MAGA folks, but also includes Tea Party folks, and also includes these establishment folks from before that. And so Trump has been able to kind of cobble those folks together, especially for the first year of his presidency. But as we've all kind of noted, his popularity is down a little bit, and he doesn't quite have that tight iron grip that he had over his party, where he could get someone like RFK Jr. confirmed through the Senate.
Yeah, and I guess that brings us back to what Rick was arguing in the beginning, is that Donald Trump, as he sees himself as a lame duck, and as he starts to lose power, you have to, Rick, you tell me, you worry about what he might do next, the move he might make to try to wrestle back control?
Yeah, Katy, I think that is really something I was trying to get across in this piece, is that Donald Trump has repeatedly shown us that if you say the line is right here, don't cross it, he will cross it. And if we take lightly his use of executive power in the second half of his second term, I think we will be ill-served, because he will come out and do things that the sort of establishment vision of he could never do X, then he will go and do X times 10. I'm deeply concerned about that, especially on the civil liberties front, as we've seen playing out with ICE across this country. And I'm concerned about it on the foreign affairs front, as well, as we're seeing this week, in fact, with this absurd Ukraine deal.
All right, Rick Wilson, Tara Palmeri, thank you so much. Burgess Everett, appreciate it.
That was another episode of the Tara Palmeri Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this show, please rate it, subscribe, follow, share it with all of your friends. Please leave comments. If you like my reporting, you can go to tarapalmeri.com. That's TARAPALMERI. You can sign up for the Red Letter. That's where you can get all of my exclusive reporting and my independent journalism straight to your inbox. It is how you can support my independent journalism. And I will keep at it thanks to you. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abenate. I want to thank Abby Baker, who does my research and my social media, and Adam Stewart on the thumbnails. I'll be back again this week. I'm thankful for all of you. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving week and you're able to take it a little slower.